Life isn't about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself. We don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing. Progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. A life spent making mistakes is not only more honorable but more useful than a life spent doing nothing. Success does not consist in never making mistakes, but in never making the same one a second time. The reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable one persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. People who say it cannot be done should not interrupt those who are doing it. You see things, you say, why? But I dream things that never were, and I say, why not? The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. Youth is wasted on the young. Better keep yourself clean and bright. You are the window through which you must see the world. There is no love sincerer than the love of food. A government that robs Peter to pay Paul can always depend on the support of Paul. A pessimist is a man who thinks everybody is as nasty as himself. The liar's punishment is, not in the least that he is not believed, but that he cannot believe anyone else. He who can does. He who cannot teaches. The secret to success is to offend the greatest number of people. When a man wants to murder a tiger, he calls it sport. When a tiger wants to murder him, he calls it ferocity. You use a glass mirror to see your face. You use works of art to see your soul. All great truths begin as blasphemies. The worst sin toward our fellow creatures is not to hate them, but to be indifferent to them. Life does not cease to be funny when people die any more than it ceases to be serious when people laugh. A true artist will let his wife starve, his children go barefoot, his mother drudge for his living at 70, sooner than work at anything but his art. We are made wise not by the recollection of our past, but by the responsibility for our future. Do not do unto others as you would that they should do unto you. Their tastes may not be the same. Silence is the most perfect expression of scorn. A man of great common sense and good taste is a man without originality or moral courage. The only man I know who behaves sensibly is my tailor. He takes my measurements anew each time he sees me. A learned man is an idler who kills time by study. A man never tells you anything until you contradict him. If history repeats itself, and the unexpected always happens, how incapable must man be of learning from experience? What a man believes may be ascertained, not from his creed, but from the assumptions on which he habitually acts. You will never have a quiet world until you knock the patriotism out of the human race. The power of accurate observation is commonly called cynicism by those who have not got it. There is nothing more dangerous than the conscience of a bigot. The great advantage of a hotel is that it is a refuge from home life. Democracy is a device that ensures we shall be governed no better than we deserve. When a thing is funny, search it carefully for a hidden truth. Without art, the crudeness of reality would make the world unbearable. A fashion is nothing but an induced epidemic. Hatred is the coward's revenge for being intimidated. The English are not a very spiritual people, so they invented cricket to give them some idea of eternity. If all economists were laid end to end, they would not reach a conclusion. Patriotism is your conviction that this country is superior to all others because you were born in it. Martyrdom is the only way in which a man can become famous without ability. A perpetual holiday is a good working definition of hell. The fact that a believer is happier than a skeptic is no more to the point than the fact that a drunken man is happier than a sober one. When I was young, I observed that 9 out of 10 things I did were failures, so I did 10 times more work. There is no satisfaction in hanging a man who does not object to it. The more things a man is ashamed of, the more respectable he is. The trouble with her is that she lacks the power of conversation but not the power of speech. The most tragic thing in the world is a man of genius who is not a man of honor. A gentleman is one who puts more into the world than he takes out. Every man over 40 is a scoundrel. People are always blaming their circumstances for what they are. I don't believe in circumstances. Assassination is the extreme form of censorship. Few people think more than 2 or 3 times a year. I have made an international reputation for myself by thinking once or twice a week. There is only one religion, though there are 100 versions of it. The possibilities are numerous once we decide to act and not react. My reputation grows with every failure. A photographer is like a cod, which produces 1,000,000 eggs in order that one may reach maturity. If you want to tell people the truth, make them laugh, otherwise they'll kill you. The love of economy is the root of all virtue. Life does not cease to be serious when people laugh any more than it ceases to be funny when people die. The test of a man or woman's breeding is how they behave in a quarrel. The man who writes about himself and his own time is the only man who writes about all people and all time. When a man says money can do anything, that settles it. He hasn't got any. It's easier to replace a dead man than a good picture. Cruelty would be delicious if one could only find some sort of justification for it. It is dangerous to be sincere unless you are also stupid. Imagination is the beginning of creation. You imagine what you desire, you will what you imagine, and at last, you create what you will. The golden rule is that there are no golden rules. I never resist temptation because I have found that things that are bad for me do not tempt me. I learned long ago never to wrestle with a pig. You get dirty, and besides, the pig likes it. If you cannot get rid of the family skeleton, you may as well make it dance. No question is so difficult to answer as that to which the answer is obvious. You must not suppose, because I am a man of letters, that I never tried to earn an honest living. Virtue consists not in abstaining from vice, but in not desiring it. We have no more right to consume happiness without producing it than to consume wealth without producing it. I dislike feeling at home when I am abroad. Alcohol is the anesthesia by which we endure the operation of life. You can always tell an old soldier by the inside of his holsters and the outside of his jacket. We learn from experience that men never learn anything from experience. If you cannot appreciate what you have got, you had better get what you can appreciate. Just do what must be done. This may not be happiness, but it is greatness. Better see rightly on £1 a week than squint on 1,000,000. When a stupid man is doing something he is ashamed of, he always declares that it is his duty. The liar's punishment is not that he is not believed, but that he cannot believe anyone else. The churches must learn humility as well as teach it. To be clever enough to get all that money, one must be stupid enough to want it. It is difficult, if not impossible, for most people to think otherwise than in the fashion of their own period. The moment we want to believe something, we suddenly see all the arguments for it, and become blind to the arguments against it. Power does not corrupt men. Fools, however, if they get into a position of power, corrupt power. I am afraid we must make the world honest before we can honestly say to our children that honesty is the best policy. It is not pleasure that makes life worth living. It is life that makes pleasure worth having. The more I see of the moneyed classes, the more I understand the guillotine. The art of government is the organization of idolatry. Democracy substitutes election by the incompetent many for appointment by the corrupt few. Reading made Don Quixote a gentleman, but believing what he read made him mad. No man ever believes that the Bible means what it says. He is always convinced that it says what he means. Youth is a wonderful thing. What a crime to waste it on children. Science never solves a problem without creating 10 more. Man can climb to the highest summits, but he cannot dwell there long. It is the mark of a truly intelligent person to be moved by statistics. Better never to have been born. But who is as lucky as that? To whom does it happen? Not to one among millions and millions of people. When a man wants to murder a tiger, he calls it sport. When a tiger wants to murder him, he calls it ferocity. There are no secrets better kept than the secrets that everybody guesses. Beware of false knowledge. It is more dangerous than ignorance. Men are wise in proportion, not to their experience, but to their capacity for experience. If you take too long in deciding what to do with your life, you'll find you've done it. The things most people want to know about are usually none of their business. My way of joking is to tell the truth. It's the funniest joke in the world. What is life but a series of inspired follies? The difficulty is to find them to do. He who has never hoped can never despair. People become attached to their burdens, sometimes more than the burdens are attached to them. It is a curious sensation, the sort of pain that goes mercifully beyond our powers of feeling. A life spent making mistakes is not only more honorable, but more useful than a life spent doing nothing. The reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable one persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Do not wait for leaders. Do it alone, person to person. There are two tragedies in life. One is to lose your heart's desire. The other is to gain it. Take care to get what you like, or you will be forced to like what you get. Liberty means responsibility. That is why most men dread it. He knows nothing, and he thinks he knows everything. That points clearly to a political career. Those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. I learned long ago never to wrestle with a pig. You get dirty, and besides, the pig likes it. People are always blaming their circumstances for what they are. A fool's brain digests philosophy into folly, science into superstition, and art into pedantry. Hence, university education. We should all be obliged to appear before a board every 5 years and justify our existence. Most people do not pray, they only beg. You cannot be a hero without being a coward. Power does not corrupt men. Fools, however, if they get into a position of power, corrupt power. The best place to find God is in a garden. You can dig for him there. Never waste a minute thinking about people you don't like. Animals are my friends, and I don't eat my friends. Why should we take advice on sex from the Pope? If he knows anything about it, he shouldn't. The truth is, hardly any of us have ethical energy enough for more than one really inflexible point of honor. Every man who is his own lawyer has a fool for a client. The 7 deadly sins: food, clothing, firing, rent, taxes, respectability, and children. A woman who wants a man's heart must learn to turn his head. A man of great common sense and good taste, meaning thereby a man without originality or moral courage. Marriage is popular because it combines the maximum of temptation with the maximum of opportunity. First love is only a little foolishness and a lot of curiosity. If there was nothing wrong in the world, there wouldn't be anything for us to do. The savage bows down to idols of wood and stone, the civilized man to idols of flesh and blood. All professions are conspiracies against the laity. There is no subject on which more dangerous nonsense is talked and thought than marriage. A man who never missed an opportunity to say a good word. Virtue is insufficient temptation. The man who has no problems is out of the game. You cannot have power for good without having power for evil too. You have learnt something. That always feels at first as if you had lost something. A woman always has her revenge ready. A miracle is an event which creates faith. A broken heart is a very pleasant complaint for a man in London if he has a comfortable income. What we want is to see the child in pursuit of knowledge, and not knowledge in pursuit of the child.